other website says Frontiers in Genetics, the Origins of Ashkenazic Jews in Yiddish. All right, and right here it says historical meaning of Ashkenaz says Ashkenaz is one of the most disputed biblical place names. It appears in the Hebrew Bible as the name of one of Noah's descendants. All right, that's what the guy was talking about earlier through Japheth, right? One of his sons. As a reference to the kingdom of Ashkenaz, prophesied to be called together with Ararat and Minai to wage war against Babylon. Jeremiah 51:27, in addition to tracing Ashkenazi Jews to the ancient Iranian lands of Ashkenaz and uncovering the villages whose names may derive from Ashkenaz, the partial Iranian origin of Ashkenazi Jews inferred by Das et al. 2006 was further supported by genetic similarity of Ashkenazi Jews to Sephardic Mountain Jews and Iranian Jews, as well as their similarity to Near Eastern populations and simulated native Turkish and Caucasus populations. Caucasus, the Khazars, right? There are good grounds, therefore, for inferring that Jews who consider themselves Ashkenazic adopted this name and spoke of their lands as Ashkenaz, since they perceived themselves as Iranian origin, that we find varied evidence of the knowledge of Iranian language among Moroccan and Andalusian Jews and Karaites. You hear this? It's a big confederacy here. Andalusians, what are you talking about? Huh? Thought that was a Moorish town. Alright? Karaites. And to the 11th century's compelling point of reference to assess the shared Iranian origins of Sephardic and Ashkenazic Jews. Moreover, Iranian-speaking Jews in the Caucasus, the so-called Yehudis, and Turkic-speaking Jews in the Crimea prior to World War II called themselves Ashkenazism. Nazism. The Rhineland hypothesis cannot explain why a name that denotes Scythians and was associated with the Near East becomes associated with German lands in the 11th to 13th century. Uproot suggested that Jewish immigrants in Europe transferred biblical names onto the regions in which they settled. This is unconvincing. Biblical names were used as place names only when they had similar sound. Not only Germany and Ashkenaz do not share similar sounds, but Germany was already named Germana or Germanja in the Iranian Babylonian Talmud, completed in the 5th century AD, and not surprisingly was associated with Noah's grandson Gomer. Talmud Joma, alright? Noah's grandson Gomer from Gomer. Alright, you hear this? That's Japheth again. Alright, Talmud Joma. Continues, says the genetic structure of Ashkenazic Jews. Ashkenazic Jews were localized to modern-day Turkey and found to be genetically closest to Turkic, Southern Caucasian, and Iranian populations, suggesting a common origin in Iranian Ashkenaz lands, descendants of Ashkenaz in the lands of Ashkenaz. These findings were more compatible with an Irano-Turco-Slavic origin for Ashkenazi Jews and a Slavic origin for Yiddish than with the Rhineland hypothesis. So this is the original. They say, oh, we were just German. You know, that's what it means. Ashkenaz means German. Right, but actually it's Turkic and, Caucasian, and, it has a lot of Slavic relations as well. All those areas up there in between, almost getting to the Middle East, but actually in Europe still. Eastern Europe, they call. The findings have also highlighted the strong social, cultural, and genetic bonds of Ashkenazic and Iranian Judaism and their shared Iranian origins. Alright, so now I'm in myjewishlearning.com. It says, who are the Ashkenazi Jews? Alright, now it's important what we just read. You know how they translate the Reinhardt hypothesis means that they just came from Germany and that's it. They have no relation to Iranians or Turkish people or Caucasian people, none of that, right? Because they, they want to be linked to ancient Hebrew. So going with the whole Turkic and Iranian thing, it doesn't link them to that. So here it says Ashkenazi Jews are the Jewish ethnic identity most readily recognized by North Americans. All right. So most of the Jews in North America are what? Ashkenazi Jews. The culture of matzah balls, black-hatted Hasidim in Yiddish, the ethnicity originated in medieval Germany. Although strictly speaking, all right. So now this is what the story goes, right? That originated in Germany, but we just debunked that, right? Through genetics. We just saw the two other websites, right? Although strictly speaking, Ashkenazism refers to Jews of Germany, the term has come to refer more broadly Jews from Central and Eastern Europe. All right, it has come. They're learning. There's new information coming out. You can't control the information. All right. Genetics is telling people, and there's more information to tell you that it's actually more broadly to Jews from Central and Eastern Europe. Jews first reached the interior of Europe by following trade routes along waterways during the 8th and 9th centuries. Eventually, the vast majority of Ashkenazi Jews relocated to the Polish Commonwealth, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Ukraine, and Belarus. All right, we got that already too, where princes welcomed their skilled and educated workforce. The small pre-existing Polish Jewish communities' customs were displaced by the Ashkenazic prayer, order, customs, and Yiddish language. All right. We're in the Encyclopedia Britannica, we're telling us that the Ashkenazi people, says today Ashkenazism constitute more than 80% of all Jews in the world. All right. Now remember, well, they told us in the Almanac that just because you're a Jew doesn't mean you're the ancient Israelite. It's not synonymous. All right. Remember that. Vastly outnumbered Sephardic Jews. In the early 21st century, Ashkenazic Jews numbered about 11 million. In Israel, the numbers of Ashkenazism and Sephardim are roughly equal, and the chief rabbinate has both as Ashkenazic and a Sephardic chief rabbi on equal footing. All Reform and conservative Jewish congregations belong to the Ashkenazic tradition. All right? All right, I'm in the Zondervan Pictorial Bible Dictionary by Merrill C. Tini. All right, this is the official one in the 60s. All right, we're going to go to page 76. Well, around page 76, let me see. All right, so actually page 77 of this book, and it says Ashkenaz, right? Ashkenaz, great-grandson of Noah through Japheth and Gomer. All right? And this is the Bible verses. It says a tribe or nation mentioned once in Jeremiah 51:27, associated with the Ararat and Mini as an instrument of wrath in the hands of God against Babylon. They fought for the Most High, you know. And so again, a tribe or a nation, a nation. He has a nation, Ashkenaz. All right, he had a nation. Where's their descendants? And we're under Japheth now. All right, it says God will enlarge. That's what it means. It says a son of Noah. He was older than Shem, but comes third in some list of the three sons. Shem, however, is usually named first. Japheth and his wife were saved in the ark. He aided Shem in covering the naked body of their drunken father. He is the progenitor of the more remote northern peoples of southeastern Europe. All right, ancestor what? Of who? Southeastern Europe's, right? Ashkenazi Jews, these Khazars, all these Turks, right? Mongols. That he was to occupy the tents of Shem is thought to refer to conquest of the Greeks, who were descendants of Japheth. All right, the Greeks are descendants of Japheth. The Greeks are descendants of Japheth. The Greeks are descendants of Japheth. All right, Greeks. You know the Greeks are black, right? We saw Medicine Man's video. The ancient Greeks were black. All right, so even Japheth was black. It wasn't always about white. All right, this he did during the days of Assyrian power. He had 7 sons whose descendants occupied the isles of the Gentiles, Hellenes or Greeks, an area including Asia Minor and Upper Greece. All right, that's Japheth right there. The Student's Manual of Oriental History, a manual of the ancient history of the East to the commencement of the Median Wars by François Lenormand, librarian of the Institut de France, and E. Chevalier, member of the Royal Asiatic Society of London. Volume 1, comprising the history of the Israelites, Egyptians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. New edition. All right. And again, ancient history of the East. All right. Royal Asiatic Society. These are scholars. These are not people being religious, just religious. You know, they understand that a lot of that history in the scriptures is actual history. It's put in there maybe allegorically sometimes or as a story, but there's actual truth behind it, you know, that we have to research on. So we're going to start on page 60 of this book, The Race of Japheth. Just to stay in topic, it says that the name of this youngest born of the sons of Noah signifies extension, because that his posterity was to occupy an immense extent of country. His family remained longest united and was the last to leave the neighborhood of the place where Noah had fixed his residence after the deluge. The book of Genesis gives the names of his 7 sons as Gomer, Magog, Madai, Tubal, Meshach, Tiras, and Javan. Gomer personifies the family originally established on the northern coast of the Euxine in the north of Greece. Remember, the Euxine is the Black Sea. Remember, they were saying that the Sumerians, and the Herodotus were saying the Sumerians were from the upper, right, northern part of the Euxine, same as Gomer and his people, as it says here, in north of Greece. But in reality, they're from that whole area, Georgia and everything. So it says, from these were in due course of time to spring a people well known to the Greeks and Roman historians as Sumerians. All right, Sumerians, Kimbri or Kimri. All right, the Sumerians are from Gomer, Gamir, Gomer. Sumerians, we're talking about real people. All right, who were for ages the terror of Asia and Europe, and who even made Rome tremble at the summit of her power. 3 sons of Gomer are mentioned: Ashkenaz, whose name seems composed of Gothic roots, as Kunis, a race of asses. Hey, I didn't say it. And which represents the Germanic and Scandinavian nations, not yet separated and inhabiting a limited district to the northeast of the Black Sea. All right, Germanic and Scandinavian, the Germanic people, the Scandinavian people, Ashkenaz, who are all related to Gomer's kids. All right, Sumerians, they're all the same. Ashkenaz, they're just cousins. Britpath as another son, that is the group of Celts or Gauls. All right, the Celts, the Celts, or the Gauls, the Galatians, the Gauls, then established, or the Franks, then established in the first European settlement on the Rifine mountain, the present Carpathians, before entering on their last migration towards the France of our days. I told you these are the Franks, the Gauls. And lastly, Togarmah, in whom tradition has always recognized the Armenians. All right, these are the family or posterity of Gomer. Now, I guess he's going to get into the Magog, his son, and who's his nations. It says this represents a group of nations more extensive than others, and a very peculiar physiognomy. We speak of Magog. This name is sacred scripture, is almost always associated with Gog. The very frequent allusions in the Hebrew prophets to the incursions and ravages of the sons of Gog and Magog induce us to recognize them as the nomadic tribes of the northeast near the Caspian Sea. Their name has been compared to that of the Massagetha. The historian Josephus, the recorder of traditions of the Jewish nation, calls them Scythians, right? They're Scythians. Everything seems to prove that the inspired writer of the book of Genesis, under the name of Magog, intended to represent the numerous tribes composing the secondary race now designated by science Turanians, all right? By science, not just biblical scripture, by science. Same people. This race was one of the largest both numerically and with regard to the extent of territory which it occupies. Is divided into 2 great branches, the Ugro-Finnish and the Dravidian, the Finnish, Finland, right? Finnish, the Ugro-Finnish and the Dravidian. The first must be again subdivided into the Turkish, including the populations of Turkestan, right? Turkish people come out of this, and the steppes of Central Asia, as well as the Hungarians or the Huns, the Hungarians, right? Who have been for a long time settled in Europe, and the Uralo-Finnish group comprising the Finns, the Estonians, the Tushudis, and in general nearly all the tribes of the north of Europe and Asia. Again, all these cold places, right? All these descendants of Japheth, right? Japheth. The country of the Dravidian branch is on the contrary to the south. This branch is in fact composed of the indigenous people of the peninsula of Hindustan, Tamuls, Telingas, Karnats, who were subjugated by the Aryan race and who appear to have originally driven before them the Negroes of the Australian group, the original inhabitants of the soil, who are now represented by the almost savage tribe of the Khons. The Encyclopedia Metropolitana, or System of Universal Knowledge, on a methodical plan projected by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. All right, chronological tables. from AM 1 to AD 1500. All right. Chronological tables comprehending the chronology and history of the world from the earliest records to the close of the Russian War. First division, ancient and medieval history from AM to 1500. All right. London and Glasgow is from 1857. All right. An encyclopedia. Encyclopedia, right? The sons of Japheth, Spain, France, Greece, Germany, Asia Minor, Circassia, and Europe in general. Continue real quick in the book. Asia Minor starts talking about, the nations there. The people of Lesser Phrygia or Trojans were also without doubt a very ancient people, but of certain origin. Boschar supposed that Ashkenaz, the eldest son of Gomer, first settled this district. It says the northern and German nations. I skipped a lot, but I just want to show you things that relate to what we're talking about. It says in this division or chronology, we have recorded the dates and the most remarkable of those barbaric inundations, which from the time swept over the fairest and most civilized portions of the east and west. Though the invading tribes were known by different names, yet as they all, or nearly all, proceeded from a common source, same people, same family, and as their historic importance taken singly extends over but a comparatively brief period, the necessity and propriety of including them under one general appellation and one chronological category will at once be evident. These barbaric tribes, remember Conan the Barbarian, these barbarous tribes, Barbary tribes were known as Scythians, Tartars, the Gati, the Masagati, the Sarmatians or Samaritans or Sarmatians, Cimmerians, all right, the Cimmerians, here we go, Teutones, Ubi, the Helvetians, the Gauls, the Goths, the Celts and the Huns, the Germans, Sclavonians, the Scandinavians, the Cherusci, the Chatti, the Alemanni or the Heruli, the Burgundians, the Marcomanni, the Suavi, the Quadi, the Alani, the Hermunduri, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Vandals, all right, etc. All right, all those people come from a common source. Remember, these are all from Gomer. These are from Gomer, or my God, Gomer. All right, now I wanted to get into this book, and I thought it was a really good find. And it's called The Royal Genealogies of the Genealogical Tables of Emperors, Kings, and Princes from Adam to the times in two parts. Part 1 begins with a chronological history of the world from the beginning of time to the Christian era, and then the genealogies of the earliest great families and most ancient sovereigns of Asia, Europe, Africa, and America down to Charlemagne, and many of them down to these times. Part 2 begins with the Grand Revolution of Charlemagne and carries on to the royal princely genealogies of Europe down to these times, concluding with those of the Britannic Isles. All right, this is by James Anderson, D.D. from London, printed by the author by James Bettenham. Now, very important, and what I want you to see is this, the year that this was printed. All right, it says, to the Most High Pusan and most illustrious Prince, Frederick Louis, Prince of Great Britain. So this is written for this person, Prince of Wales, Prince of Stewart of Scotland, a Steward of Scotland, Duke of Cornwall, Rothesay, and Edinburgh. All right, so you get it. They're going to make sure they try to be as accurate as possible. They're tracing this person's genealogy, basically. And I know you think it's all biblical and religion, but we're not talking about that. All right? Book from 1632. All right? Written to that prince. It wasn't written for you. They didn't know eventually we were going to read this. But let's see what it says here.
All right, so remember this book is written for the Prince of Britain. This is from 1632. All right, they ain't trying to be no agenda here, trying to be biblical. This is what they knew how to do. This is a very, in its time, a primary source. All right, so it says here, Table 2, the patriarchs after the flood of the line of Japheth. We're going to read a little bit about the descendants of Japheth and his line and the nations that came out of him. We're going to start out here with Gomer again. And now it says here, Gomer, from whom are descended the Cimbrians or Cimmerians. Here we go. We're going back to the people we've been studying, right? And the same book from 1632 letting us know that the Cimmerians, it is not no enigma. They're not a mystery. They come out of Gomer. All right, so the Cimbrians, Cimbri, it's like the Celts. We'll see that later, Danish. All right, from whom the descend Gomers, Sumerians, the Phrygians, we saw the map earlier, again, that's modern-day Turkey, the Phrygians and other nations of Lesser Asia, who sent their colonies afterwards into the north and west, from whom the Gauls, all right, the Gauls or the Franks come out of them, or some of the Gauls descend, for they were of various sorts. So the Gauls were mixed, though, not just Gomer, all right? So it says Magog, the father of the Getes and Massagetes, on the sides of the north great Asia, from whom came the Asiatic Scythians at or near Mount Caucasus, or Caucasus, right? Or as in the Hebrew, Gog Halam or Haran, and from these came the European Scythians and the Goths. All right, so it says Ashkenaz, father of the Ashkanians, or first inhabitants of Pontus and Bithynia, toward the Oxium Sea or the Black Sea, and also of the country in and about the Ilium or Troy. The Black Sea is by Sony called Axiom from Ashkenaz. The German nation is supposed to spring from a colony of Ashkenaz, the Germans. Remember what modern day Jews, Ashkenaz, German, Ukrainian, Khazars, And what does it say here? It says some of these are names in the dual or plural number, which are supposed to therefore to be rather the names of nations than of particular men. All right, so you don't want to see it like that, like, oh, everybody came out of 3 people. Well, then they're probably representing nations, not just one person. All right, letting you know here. But that hinders not there being descendants from Japheth, descendants from Japheth, descendants from Japheth. So even though at some point they still came out of Japheth, or this person who, originally, there is a beginning to everything, all right?
So basically, there are no unbiased sources, biblical or non-biblical, which confirm that Edomites are these Europeans. There are no sources. So why are people saying it? I don't know. And then there are no sources which confirm that the sons of Yapheth just were invaded by these Edomites, which then these sons of Yapheth that were so-called black, which is ignorant, because there is no such thing, but then these Edomites who were magically somehow these lighter people went and invaded all of Europe. There's no source to confirm this, which then whitewashed all of Europe with this Edomite magically white DNA. There's no source to confirm this. Yes, people are saying it. Wow. But we deal with sources over here. We need some sort of receipt. There are none. Here's somebody with receipts, and people don't like it because it goes against what these camp Negroes are saying. Make it make sense. That's all. Till next time, as it is written, and I'm out.